Hi, everyone. Welcome to Insights in Caribbean Intellectual Property, the official podcast of the Caribbean and America's Intellectual Property Organization. I'm Chris Palmer, back with Janice Keens. Today, our topic is Innovation at the Crossroads, the Caribbean IP Maze. Intellectual property rights. Sounds boring, right? But what if I told you the Caribbean is sitting on an innovation powder keg, with countries still using copyright laws from before Elvis hit the charts, while simultaneously discovering some of the world's largest oil reserves?
That's quite the contrast. And it really highlights the strange position these nations find themselves in, trying to compete in a 21st century economy with 20th century rules.
You know what's fascinating? Guyana, which just discovered massive oil reserves worth billions, is still operating under copyright laws from 1956. That's like trying to regulate smartphones with rules made for rotary phones.
Hmm. And this is happening while they're experiencing unprecedented economic growth from those oil discoveries?
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. The Caribbean has this unique position with strong ties to Western markets, significant diaspora populations in the US and UK, but they're taking this remarkably passive approach to innovation policy.
Well, that makes me wonder, what's actually holding them back? Is it just bureaucratic inertia?
It's a complex web of factors. There's this underlying fear of stricter regulations, concerns about implementation costs, and, get this, even some skepticism about whether stronger IP rights will benefit local communities rather than just international corporations.
You know what's particularly striking about that? Some Caribbean countries are actually moving forward. Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, Antigua, and Barbuda, they've all modernized their IP legislation.
Right. And that's creating this fascinating natural experiment. Some countries embracing modern IP frameworks while others hold back. The contrast is becoming more apparent every day, especially when you look at the economic data.
So, how does that divide affect regional cooperation and development?
Think of it like trying to build a bridge where each side is using different measurement systems. When you have countries operating under different IP standards, it becomes incredibly difficult to coordinate research efforts or attract international investment.
That's particularly problematic when you consider all the unique challenges the Caribbean faces: climate change, natural disasters, food security. These are issues that really need regional cooperation.
Exactly. And here's a perfect example. The region desperately needs crops that can withstand tropical storms, resist local pests, and thrive in changing climate conditions. Local scientists understand these challenges better than anyone, but without proper IP protection, there's little incentive to develop these solutions.
Oh, that reminds me of something interesting. The recent Caricom heads of government meeting barely mentioned innovation and technology. How is that possible in 2025?
Well, that's where Article 66 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas comes in. It actually recognizes the importance of IP rights, but it's not being prioritized. It's like having a powerful tool in your toolbox, but never taking it out to use it.
And meanwhile, international organizations like WIPO and the EU Intellectual Property Office are trying to help, right?
Yes, and here's the irony. Many Caribbean nations are already signatories to major IP conventions like TRIPS, yet they're reluctant to implement them domestically. It's like joining a gym, but never actually working out.
That's such a vivid way to put it. But what about the economic impact on small businesses?
The data shows that very few Caribbean SMEs are tech startups or innovation based enterprises. Their contribution to technological advancement is minimal, which creates this cycle of dependence on imported technologies and solutions.
Looking at successful examples like Singapore, it seems like there's a clear path forward. Why aren't more Caribbean nations following that model?
You know, Singapore is fascinating because it shows how a small island nation can transform itself through strong IP protection and innovation focused policies. But here's the catch: it requires political will and long term commitment, something that's been lacking in much of the Caribbean.
So, what would it take to break this cycle?
It requires a fundamental shift in mindset at multiple levels. First, governments need to see IP rights as a tool for development rather than a regulatory burden. Second, there needs to be regional coordination through Caricom to create consistent standards.
And I imagine the rapid pace of technological change doesn't help. It probably makes catching up harder every year.
That's exactly right. While these countries debate and delay, new technologies are emerging every day. The gap between innovation leaders and followers is widening, and catching up becomes increasingly difficult.
Do you see any signs of hope on the horizon?
Well, there are some promising indicators. The success of countries like Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica in modernizing their IP frameworks is creating positive peer pressure. Plus, the global digital transformation is making it impossible to ignore the importance of IP rights.
This has been such an eye-opening discussion about Caribbean IP rights. Any final thoughts?
The Caribbean stands at a crucial crossroads. The choice isn't really whether to modernize IP frameworks, that's inevitable. The real question is whether they'll do it proactively and strategically, or be forced into it reactively. The future of innovation in the region hangs in the balance.
Thank you for this fascinating deep dive into such a complex issue.
And thank you all for joining us on this exploration of intellectual property rights in the Caribbean. Do follow us wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can alert you to new episodes. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. And of course, you are welcome to visit us at www.caaipo.org. Until next time.